Maxey from outside. Sixers lead, courtesy of Tyrese Maxey.
Hit deep to left field, going back is Locastro. It is gone!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, continuing on our series today of our college football primer episodes, where we're going through probably top 25, 30 teams, whatever we can get to over this next month and a half as we gear up for the college football season. I'm going to give you 12 to 15-minute episodes on some of these top teams that you'll be watching on your TVs come Saturday this August and into the fall as we gear up for the first ever 12-team college football playoff. And while this team might not be the best team, this team might not win 5, this team might not win 6 games, but this team sure as hell will be entertaining. It will be pushed in front of your face every single week throughout the week, whether they won by 30, lost by 30, won in overtime, or lost on a walk-off field goal. This team will be at the forefront of college football all year, just like they were last year. And I'm not going to lie, after that first game against TCU last year, I was running to my TV to watch Colorado football, the games 2, 3, and then it really started to kind of spiral out of control from there. But today's episode, we're going to be getting into the Colorado Buffaloes heading into year 2 under Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders took over at Colorado last year, led the team to a 4-8 record in year 1. One of the teams that had the most roster turnover from last year. Started out hot, 3-0, found their way into the top 25, and then proceeded to go 1-8 down the stretch and really struggled from there in the Pac-12. But now Colorado, another team that is a member of realignment, moving conferences, obviously no longer in the Pac-12. They will be in the Big 12. When you look at the 2023 season, to recap it, like I said, a 4-8 record. Despite that, though, they were still one of the most entertaining team and high-profile draws of the 2023 season. Even that game against Colorado State was on Saturday night. I remember I was at a bar near my house that wasn't really screaming football fans. There was music and everything going on. People were glued to the TV like it was the Super Bowl. It was insane how much Colorado football captivated the nation last year for those first 2 to 3 weeks of the season before really falling off. But still, I'm expecting the same this year. They have the opportunity to get off to a potential good start. North Dakota State in week 1. Then it's Nebraska, I believe, that they play in week 2. Nebraska is a team that we'll get into in one of the episodes, but I'm expecting them to have a big season this year. If they're able to beat them, that could build some real momentum heading into the rest of the season in their first year in the Big 12. But started out 3-0 last year, that electric 45-42 win over TCU, who's ranked in the top 25. TCU was just coming off the national title defeat, but a team that obviously had a great season the year before, being the runner-up. But after starting out 3-0, Colorado then kind of spirals out of control, going 1-8 in the Big 12, including blowing a big lead, in the Pac-12, including blowing a big lead to Stanford in one of those games on a Friday night. Travis Hunter missed time with injuries that he suffered during that Colorado State game. Depth was a major concern, and that really became evident throughout the season. That was kind of the main message, where it was, all right, these guys have the good talent up front. I mean, you can argue some of the most talented players in all of college football, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. Those are 2 of the most 5 to 10 most talented players in all of college football. Maybe not heading into last year. That was viewed as those guys were both making the jump from the FCS level. But going into this year, I don't think many people would look at you differently if you said that Colorado is 2 of the top 10 players in college football. But depth was a major issue, and it wasn't those guys' fault that the season spiraled out of control. It was kind of everything in front of them and around them. Colorado gave up 56 sacks last year, which was the second most in the country. Was that all the offensive line's fault? No. Sanders did have some problems with holding on to the ball too long, but that can be something that you have to kind of adjust to, jump it up from the FCS to the FBS level. The speed of the game is just different, and Shedeur Sanders, I'm sure, will be better at that this year and kind of adapting into it here in year 2, as he looks to be most likely one of the top players in college football this year and probably a first-round pick next year. But when you look at the offense for this team, when the offense for Colorado was healthy and clicking last year, they were one of the most entertaining teams in the sport. They lived and died, though, with winning in shootouts in those 4 wins. They scored 37.8 points per game in their wins and only 23.4 points per game in their losses. And that included a 20.3 point per game average points in their games over the last month of the season. Pat Shermer took over play calling duties at the end of it. He has, though, a lot of experience in the NFL, not much in college, but he has one of, if not the best QB in the nation heading into the year, leading the way in Shedeur Sanders. Sanders, an extremely accurate thrower, talented thrower, and he's a gamer too. He just kind of has that way about him with the way that he plays. Completed 69.3% of his passes in 2023 for 27 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. So, like I said, he struggled kind of with, I think, the speed of the game at times and just holding on to the ball a little bit too long. But also, that's not a great benefit of having one of those, that offensive line in front of you. He probably was flooding the pocket and bailing right away off the snap just because he didn't know what was coming, and that can force you to leading into holding to the ball too long and taking some sacks. But only 3 interceptions last year to those 27 touchdowns. When he was kept upright and healthy, he lit it up. Lit it up in September, especially. Shedeur Sanders, 15 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions during the month of September. But then his stats began to fade down the stretch. Poor offensive line really took a toll on him, etc. Travis Hunter, he headlines the offensive skill player position for this Colorado team, had 57 catches last year and 721 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. That was in 9 games. He missed 3 games due to injury. I expect him to take a leap this year with those numbers. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. returns at receiver as well for Colorado. So giving them 2 really good, reliable targets at returning. Running back Dylan Edwards last year, he had a great first impression in that TCU game as a freshman. He had a really solid year this year at Colorado, his freshman year, but he wound up transferring after the spring. I believe he went to Kansas. So with those flash moments that he had last year, those are gone. Those are going to have to be replicated by someone else. And Dallin Hayden, transfer from Ohio State, comes in. He's going to be taking over the main running back duties. But this was a rushing attack last year. I said Edwards had, some flash plays. He wasn't like a bell cow type back. He was more of a big play, scat back type of guy. I think he'll have more of that kind of role at Kansas. I don't know if he's really an every down back, but this rushing attack was the weak point of this offense last year, and you can blame that on the offensive line as well. But ranked 130th in the country out of, I believe, 134 teams. So that needs to improve their rushing attack this year. Offensive line was terrible, the worst in the Power 5 last year. Added some transfers, try to remake that group. And they also got the number 1 offensive tackle in the recruiting class, this past recruiting class, in 5-star Jordan Seaton. So expect him to be the left tackle there for Shedeur Sanders during his freshman year and protect his blind side. But as long as Hunter and Travis are on the field, they're going to give them a chance and the ability to play in some of these games. We'll get into when we talk about the defense, but I don't see this team winning games 20-17, 24-21. They're going to probably have to win or live and die with shootouts and play in the high 20s to the low 30s, potentially some games even into the 40s to really have a chance at winning these games. If those 2 guys are on the field, they'll have a chance. They just kind of need everyone else to step it up, and the offensive line and then the other guys that were part of the roster retention to step it up this season and give them a chance to improve on that 4-8 record. Defense, certainly the weak point for last year's team, especially with Deion Sanders' background. You expect that to be a little bit better. Look for them to take a step up this year. They can't really be much worse this season than they were last season. Colorado's defense during the 2023 season ranked 120th or below in the 4 major defensive categories of scoring, rushing, passing, and total defense. So this is a unit that really needs to step up their game this year, and they really can't be much worse. Travis Hunter headlines the defense as well. So he plays both ways, the star-studded receiver, star-studded corner. He's a potential first-round pick, I think, at either position next year. I am very intrigued to see if he's able to hold up a whole season, playing both ways, playing 85 to 90 snaps total, because that's probably what he's going to be playing around, maybe even into the hundreds. I don't know how doable that is over a course of an entire season, but we'll see. But if anyone can do it, it's him. And if Colorado does flirt with 8-9 wins, he's going to be a Heisman finalist because he's going to be such a big part of that. And while the defense wasn't, a strong suit of this team overall, and really nothing was, as they were only 4-8, causing turnovers was one of the major strong suits of this roster. They caused 20 turnovers last year, which was 40th in the country, and they had a pretty good turnover margin as well. I believe they finished 12th in the country in turnover margin. I mean, when you have 24 turnovers, 10 of them being interceptions, your quarterback only throws 3 interceptions, that's a pretty good formula there. You just kind of got to hope that these guys improve on this side of the ball a little bit more and are able to just get a few more stops and give that offense some chances to win in those shootouts. The defense does return 6 starters, though, so a little over half of their defense, so some more continuity than the offense, which only returns 3. But as I've been alluding to, Shedeur is talented enough. He showed last year to compete in shootouts against high-level teams. The defense has to be just good enough to get a stop or 2 when it matters most. And if they can continue to turn opposing teams over like last year and they can find a way to get 1 or 2 of those key stops in a game, I think the offense is going to be good enough and suitable enough to have them, right there at the end and a chance. This is a team that the over-under win total is 5.5. They could be a 3-4 win team, or they could be a 7-8 win team. I think it depends on how they fare at end of games and whether or not they're able to keep Shedeur healthy and whether or not Travis is able to make it through the whole season. But if they continue to turn opposing teams over like they did last year and get key stops, this is a team that you should have some optimism, because there certainly is some talent in that building. It's just about putting it together, and they could potentially surprise. But as a outsider perspective, a non-biased voice, not buying into all the media hype that does surround this Colorado squad, I have them going 4-8. I have them getting wins over North Dakota State, Colorado State, Baylor, and Cincinnati. So I will be taking under 5.5 wins for this Colorado squad. They're plus 1,400 to make the playoff, and they are 30-1 to win the Big 12. The Big 12, I've talked about it a few times now. It's going to be the conference of chaos. It's going to be a wild conference. I see a lot of people throwing in Colorado tickets, obviously with the big names of the Sanders and Travis Hunter, but I just don't see it for this team. If they were able to somehow get Shedeur and Travis back for one more year after this, maybe I could see them taking that leap, but I just don't think all the pieces are there and in place yet, and it's going to be really hard when you have a pretty poor offensive line still, the inability to run the ball, and so much pressure on the shoulders of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders to really make this a long-term suitable season. Could they get out to a 3-0, 3-1, 4-1 type start? Sure, they could, but I just don't think that they have the longevity in them, and that was my take on them at the beginning of last year after they started out 3-0. So we're going to start to see that depth come up as a real concern. So that is my take on the Colorado Buffaloes 2024 season. They're going to be front and center all season, no matter if they're 0-12 or they're 12-0. We're going to be hearing about them 6-6, you name it. But I'm going under 5.5 wins on them with a 4-8 record. As always, keep the lock here on PickSwap Media. We're going to be rolling out a bunch more previews as the summer months go along, July and August, as we gear up towards week 0, and probably even a few leading up to week 1. But that'll do it here for PickSwap Media, the Beef Upfront podcast. My name is Ryan Coyle. Thank you always for listening. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.